A bipartisan group of governors are opening their cities' arms to Afghan refugees fleeing their country. The acceptance of refugees has become political fodder among partisan pundits, but what do voters actually think? We have new Hill-HarrisX data that asks just that. Let's take a look.
The poll found 71% support for accepting refugees from Afghanistan into the U.S. This includes 81% of Democrats, 66% of independents, and 64% of Republicans. GOP pollster and strategist B.J. Martino joins us now to discuss. B.J., what's your take on this?
Well, I think first of all, it shows that the vast majority of Americans exhibit this level of compassion towards these refugees who are struggling to leave the country. And 71% is, closing in polling terms on unanimity. You ask voters if the sky is blue, and you'll be lucky if you get to 80%, just because there's a portion who are always going to say they disagree with you in some reason. So I find this to be a vast number, showing a deep level of compassion among Americans and willingness to accept these refugees. The problem is it's completely meaningless unless these Afghan refugees can actually become refugees, unless they can actually leave the country. And, as Karen Tombley wrote in the Post yesterday, this is a failure on the part of the Biden administration to get these priority 2 Afghan refugees, our allies who helped journalists, who helped U.S. aid workers, now return the favor and help them get out of this place.
So are you seeing in this data that there's any sort of divide? There are, like you said, that little group, right? Majority want to do something, but there's some that don't. Are you seeing this in certain areas of the country? Are you able to look at that detail?
Sure. There's not much significant difference by geography, but there are some demographic differences. As your chart showed, there's a little bit more reluctance among some Republicans. You can also see it among independent voters. Interestingly, the 18 to 34-year-old segment of your poll showed a little bit more reluctance, and African-American voters were reluctant as well. All of those segments had opposition that was at or above 30%, which is slightly higher than the overall number in this poll, and does indicate there may be some issues and some reluctances there. But there wasn't any demographic segment that showed anywhere near a majority opposition. There is majority support and 60% or higher majority support, regardless of who you're looking at and where you're looking in this country.
Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar told MSNBC's Joy Reid the, quote, hateful rhetoric, unquote, of toward Afghan refugees from Fox News is part of their playbook to gin up excitement among the GOP base. Do you think there's anything to this, BJ? Do Republicans have some electoral danger here?
I think Ilhan Omar has some political gain from ginning this up as well. So I don't think playing politics on this issue is limited to one side or the other. But you're playing on either side to a limited base. Again, when she makes those sort of statements about Fox News, she's not speaking to how most Americans feel. She's not attacking the vast majority of Republicans who are saying we actually support this. The real problem and the distraction this is attempting to be, again, is from the fact that how many of these folks are we actually going to be able to get to this country, and how many are going to be stuck outside the fence at the airport in Kabul and never actually be able to make it.
Yeah, the polling's fascinating because, to your point, BJ, it really doesn't reflect the sentiment that some of the cable news voices we have seen. Yesterday in my radar talked about some of the voices at Fox News and elsewhere that were already ginning up the "don't let refugees in," but it seems pretty clear the country is pretty strongly behind helping them if we're able to. But to your point, that remains to be seen if we can't even evacuate them from the country. So we'll be looking to see what happens in the coming days.
Yeah, I think it is critically important. The next week or two will determine how history judges the Biden administration and how it impacts in a shorter term from a political standpoint, his job approval and Democratic chances in the 22 midterms. I mean, this is all tied in together. And I hate to boil everything down to just who's going to win or lose an election because of an issue, but it's certainly going to have consequences for that.
Absolutely. Well, BJ, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for watching. We will see you next time.